In August 2004, Adam Curry launched his show Daily Source Code. I've never heard of it, and I'm sure you haven't either. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Fervent Four. Did you know that only 4% of businesses ever cross the annual $1 million revenue mark? I also cannot speak. Hello, I'm Zack Miller, author of Anomaly. With me today, I have my co-host Tim Ryan, lead man at StartWheel.org. Thank you so much for joining us. The Fervent Four is a weekly show each and every Thursday at 11 a.m. dedicated to sharing insights into growing a world-class business no matter the climate. Do you guys like it when I speak faster or slower? I can't tell. Podcasts 17 years later are way easier to start, produce, and listen to than even just 5 years ago. This form of media is capitalizing on one's earbuds on the daily. Insert Eric Thomas, lead man at Rival Digital. No, it's not a podcasting company, but a digital marketing firm specializing in HVAC who uses this 17-year buzz to, well, help them get buzz. Eric, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How's it going, Eric? Hey, Zach.
Hello.
Adam Curry.
Adam Curry. So
Adam Curry?
Is what?
Is that Adam Curry? Who's Adam Curry?
I have no idea. I looked up what was the first podcast. When was the first podcast ever created or something like that? And what came up, according to the internet, was this guy, Adam Curry. And the show was something like, what did I say it was called? Daily Source Code. You know, it sounds like it was some sort of techie that created something. And I don't know where you guys were on the whole podcast thing, but I remember trying to start one like in 2011, 2010, something like that. Difficult as crap to do then. And even in like 14, it was still pretty difficult. And so it's interesting how we use a tool now called StreamYard. Super easy to record, to then just take the audio file and upload that somewhere else, where I oftentimes feel like people forget like how far we've moved and how quickly we've been able to do that, because you see like even just like how big a terabyte used to be, and now you can get a terabyte that's like the size of your fingernail. I mean, it's...
Dude, if you want to hear a crazy story about history of podcasting, listen to Tom Green on Joe Rogan.
That Tom Green?
Yeah, he was like one of the pioneers. He's like the podcast or OG grandfather. I mean, he was like, they had no idea that they were going to get the audience that they were going to get. And next thing you know, they were getting hosting bills for like $100,000. Because back then, there wasn't broadband, and you had to tap into a server and actually pay for the bandwidth that you were using.
And so, your customers using?
Yeah. And so it was rolling on. It was rolling on their own websites, and then the bandwidth had the
right.
And he had servers set up in his house and Cat5 running all over the place. It's worth a listen to. It's just to hear how far things have come since those days.
That's mind blowing. I don't even know really what to say to that. Like it's there's so much content now. There's so many people doing things, and so just to think back. And we're just another TV show on another channel. That's how I look at this stuff. And it's just mind-boggling to look at some of these pioneers. I think historically people would probably say someone like Joe Rogan, is the pioneer of this. And maybe he made this stuff big. But to hear like a story about Tom Green like that, because Tom Green was huge at one point, or just that Adam Curry was the man way back when. No relation likely to Steph Curry. I have no idea. I just made that up. Maybe he likes curry food. Just making a lot of assumptions here. That's what we do here on ZackStatsNation.com. Not a website, should be. But it's cool to just see stuff like that. Eric has literally said like one word, and this is
we're 5 minutes deep.
I love it.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Okay, he's three words in. Let's see if we can get another 5 minutes deep without him saying a word.
Here we go. I'll prompt the next conversation. RSS feeds.
Is that so? What is so? Let's just think about what is a podcast in general, right? So a podcast is literally just running off of an RSS feed.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, see, it used to be where like you would record the episode, you would get the audio, upload it to iTunes or whatever it was back then, and then some rascal on LimeWire would go download it for free or whatever, and then they would put it on their MP3 player, and then they would listen to it in the car or on their headset. But like you had limited space on those MP3 players, so why would anyone waste their space on a podcast, really? So podcasting, like you said, didn't really take off until 2015, 2016, when people started being able to actually stream episodes as they came out directly to a particular platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts and whatnot. And so RSS feeds make that easy. And, that was really the big challenge, was being able to manually update the RSS feed versus you've got these tools now like Podbean and Buzzsprout and Pocket Cast. There's a gazillion of them where you just upload the MP3 and it takes care of all that legwork for you.
And the crazy thing is that we're still very much in the infancy state of podcasts. I mean, it's almost like we're in podcast 2.0. Back, what we were talking about just a second ago was the origination, and now it's as Spotify and Apple start to compete for market share and all that. That's kind of like we're experiencing the 2.0, and so now it's the next wave. How long have you been in the podcast game, Eric?
I'd say probably about a year now. So before
listening and producing.
Listening. I've been listening to podcasts for probably since 2016. I think 2015 when I first got Spotify, like the premium version. I started listening to some on there. Very limited back then to what you could listen to because, like we were saying, it wasn't really a huge thing in 2015, even on Spotify. And so there was a few shows that you could listen to. I started picking them up a little bit more later on after college. When I graduated in 2017, I began listening to them pretty much every day. There's several podcasts I listen to now. And I know like exactly when they're going to come out and I listen to them right as they drop. But I started recording podcasts about a year ago. I started one for fun that kind of just sparked out of a hobby of mine from like woodworking. I started a podcast called The Artisan Order, which I think we could go ahead and classify that one as pod faded and no longer in existence. But it was very similar to my podcast now where I was interviewing, I guess you could say influencers in the woodworking space on like Instagram and YouTube, and just talking to them about becoming content creators and all that stuff. And then when I started Rival, or when we got Rival off the ground, we were like, we got to start a podcast because that's where it's at. And so we've been in with doing the Smart HVAC Marketing podcast now since December 2020. So right at 7 months with our podcast. Zack changed into his Rival Digital hat. I appreciate it. It's very on brand. And we're at 54 episodes now with the Smart HVAC Marketing podcast. How did that come about? How did we say coming up with the idea of HVAC? What's the genesis of that and how it began? Well, so Rival Digital launched as a child company of Array Digital, or sister company, you might want to call it. And just focusing on the niche of doing marketing for HVAC contractors only. And so that's our entire audience, or our entire target that we go after. So when we started looking at ideas for like a podcast, there was a lot out there that are related to like the technical aspect of the trade, hands-on type stuff. But there was only like one or two that were like marketing specific. And of those two, only one of them actually posted very often, if any at all. The other one was about 2 years out from their last episode. So there just seemed like there was a pretty cool little opportunity there to start a podcast that was entirely focused on marketing and HVAC business versus learning the trade or any of that other stuff. And so your audience, I'm sorry, Zach, your audience is
HVAC companies and HVAC workers?
Yeah, I would say it's more so the owners of HVAC companies. There's a lot of times if you have like an HVAC technician, they're not typically super interested in the marketing and business side of it. They're more so interested in the trade side of it. So we do have a few technicians that listen, and I imagine that some of those are probably some of like the moonlighters who, are working side jobs and are trying to like grow their own brand on the side and with hopes of starting their own HVAC business. But for the most part, our audience is owners of HVAC businesses and then people who do marketing for HVAC businesses as well.
Was it difficult to figure out that the person who could listen actually is listening on that platform, right? So like, oh, do you blog? Because a lot of people are saying now, okay, podcasts are the new blog, right? So, well, people aren't reading stuff, right? Do you write for that target customer, if you will? Fancy hat, by the way. Just got it yesterday. Thanks. Appreciate it. It's very nice and fitting since I'm having such a terrible hair day. Yours is in the mail. I will guarantee it. But I think some of the challenges that people have with business in general is finding out who their target customer is. Okay, you guys figured out that HVAC business owners are likely your customer, right? But then to say, hey, we're going to go almost all in on this one platform. And how did you recognize that they were there and listening? Because that seems to be a pretty big assumption on in a world where assumptions can derail a business getting off the ground, if you will.
Yeah. So really, I mean, I kind of figured out that people were listening to podcasts in this industry just based on the Google searches that came up when I typed in HVAC podcasts. There was hundreds of podcasts related to HVAC. And so I realized like, okay, there are people listening to this type of content. There is an audience out there for it. And then I did research on Facebook as well, like looking for Facebook groups that had HVAC and podcast in it.
But didn't you just say there was the leading podcast for digital marketing HVAC was like years before?
So yeah, for marketing, yeah.
So you added that keyword in there for this specific type of, got it.
Right, yeah. So yeah, we noticed once we saw that, like if you go type in HVAC podcast, you're going to see a ton of different podcasts,
but not directly for HVAC.
Yeah, for marketing. So that was really the big opportunity there, and it just made sense to name it the Smart HVAC Marketing Podcast, because for SEO purposes now, if someone types in HVAC Marketing Podcast, we just flood the first page of Google.
Yeah, and it's very interesting that you put your face on a poster on the wall behind you where you record. Do you ever? I also have a poster of myself on the wall behind me. Not the awards and the newspaper stuff. Actually, that's me from a different life. I just want everyone to realize that. Is that a conscious effort to do something like that? Like, why have that thing up there? If that's because it looks like it's just kind of the thumbnail banner of the show. What was the reasoning behind having something on the wall there?
The wall was just a little bare, and we wanted to have something on it. And I record in this corner of the office, so I thought it was just a pretty good spot to have it. And also it helps because if I'm doing StreamYard and I want to change out the branding, like where you have StartWheel, I would usually have the Rival Digital logo or like the podcast thumbnail. Now I can remove those branding elements and put.
Got it. We can put different things up there, like a different StartWheel logo. Ooh, a fancy book. Like we can do different things. So
now I don't have to put the branding on the screen. I can just have it right here.
Interesting. And so then it's always, so from a clip perspective, it's you have that logo always on there no matter what. And I don't think people give that as much credit as necessary. It's like that little thing could be the reason why people are listening, but then they look and they see, some sort of a logo. That can be the one little piece of marketing that gets them to go to the website to look at that thing. I mean, I appreciate that. So cool. Tim?
Yeah, I just think that one of the cool lessons. So the premise of this show is get people the tips that they need to have a successful business. And one of the things that we always are talking about is customer segmentation. And when you think that you have your customer identified, segment some more and segment some more. And the more narrow that you can get that focused, the better off you're going to be, because you need to understand who your customer is. You can't be all things to all people. And it's cool to see a podcast like this that is so narrowly focused, and you really, really know who your customers, or in this case, your listeners are. So it's really effective. And in terms of, I would think that this works really well in terms of engagement and you being able to communicate with those listeners and maybe customers.
Yeah. Well, and it's something to realize that, like, when you're doing a business podcast and it's so niche and so laser focused, like, I know, like, I'm not going to become the next Joe Rogan. Obviously, I'm not going to, become the next Andy Frisella or whoever the next big podcaster that you enjoy is. But we could be that type of person to a very specific person who is our ideal client, from a business development standpoint, is great. So we can get in front of them that way. But also we're able to, we have a smaller reach, if you will, because it's not everyone. But the engagement, like you said, is 10 times greater than what it probably could have been if we try to just do a general podcast.
It is, you can't become the next big podcaster. That statement that you made, is that because the style of material, the style of show that you do is for a very niche industry, and so it's results driven and laser focused, if you will, where sorry,
I'll do
inside joke. So is it because that's just a smaller pool and there's not billions of people that potentially could listen to that, because it's just people looking for HVAC marketing instead of just like general public information like those other podcasts that you mentioned, those other shows would be? Is that the reason?
Yeah. So, like, I'm not gonna become the Joe Rogan of the podcasting world, but I could be like a Joe Rogan for the HVAC podcast world. I could be like that.
And I think what's interesting about this that people don't appreciate, don't respect, overlook, is that it's okay that number isn't bigger.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Like, you don't need that to see results in the stuff that you're doing. Yet many believe that if they don't hit that big 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 37 figure number, that they can't see success. And I think what you guys have done with the Smart HVAC Marketing podcast, hosted by Eric Thomas of Rival Digital, I can almost read.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of pinpointing that exactly, where it's like, you saw a hole, you already had this company, now you found this hole in the market, and it's helpful.
Well, yeah, and it's led to 68.5% of our new clients for the entire year of 2021 have been from the podcast, either guests or just listeners. And actually, of that 68%, I think like 12% were actually guests, and then the other remaining number, I don't know math, the rest were just listeners who were listening to the show, and when the time was right and they decided, okay, this podcast has sparked a thought in my mind that maybe I can grow my business if I just do a little more marketing. Then they remembered, hey, there's that one company that has that podcast, and that's where I get all my ideas from. I'll call them and see what they have to say. And that's how we kind of have grown our business a little bit this year.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, I would rather have a smaller number of listeners and being dominant on page one from a Google standpoint than having 100,000 listeners, or pick a huge number, and then zero engagement, and then you're completely lost on Google page 5, 6, or whatever. No one goes past page 1, maybe 2 anyway. So, yeah, that's a lot of people just don't realize that. They get so hung up over likes and comments and all the glamour metrics of everything. So, I'm curious in terms, I mean, to me, was part of your thinking just in the sense of the HVAC industry is there? I mean, there's just so many different, I mean, if you take one drive down the street, you're going to have probably past 10 different companies, 10 different trucks that are all different companies that are all, there's just not a major player in that market. I mean, the same holds true for plumbing and electricians or landscapers. Are you moving that needle at all in terms of our competitors of one another in the same area starting to do the same things, or the people that are listening, learning and taking their business and increasing their business? What have you noticed anything to this point?
I guess from a local standpoint, no, I'm not certain that it's really affected the local market a whole lot. But I will say that there have been several times now where, we've had a contractor reach out to us and say like, oh, I heard certain person say this on this one episode and now I'm doing it. And so that's really been kind of cool to hear, different people across the country just taking away little nuggets from each episode and applying it to their business to help, increase their marketing and really grow their business. I don't believe though that there has been a ton in the local market here that has listened to the podcast and revolutionized the way they go to business or whatever. But
a lot of your clients, you're focused on not in the market, so that you are a business that's housed, headquartered in the 757, but your clientele is not necessarily housed in the 757.
Oh no, yeah, I think we've got two in the 757, and then we got one Northern Virginia, Tennessee, Indiana, California, Las Vegas.
I would prefer if you just name off the cities and the states at the same time. So Juneau, Alaska, Phoenix, Arizona. That was a song
all the way to Tacoma.
Yeah, that's the song that I had to sing in elementary school. I suppose. So as a podcast host, that's something that I've been doing for a little while. Tim has been doing for a while. You have now been doing for a little while. What's a question that you ask on a pretty regular basis that you have noticed, and maybe you've switched and you don't ask this question anymore, that you have found it being difficult to get an answer out of someone?
Ooh.
That's the question.
That's the question. There's a few good questions I ask that always get a good response. Like I'll typically ask them like, what's one piece of advice that you wish you knew when you started your business? And that usually has a pretty good response. I would say the more difficult questions is just asking them stuff about their business, like how they're growing it or what they've done to see their business grow over the years. And it's different because, it goes out across the country. So we got listeners in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and it's 117 degrees. And then we have listeners in Boston where it's 70 degrees. And so it isn't always apples to apples. So that's why sometimes it's a little difficult for them to share that type of insight because it might not be useful or relevant for everyone.
Do you do anything to try to get them to say it, or you just say, okay?
Yeah. So I'll typically ask them because it's a very seasonal business for, in different areas, like up, Virginia to like up north, it is kind of seasonal. You get all 4 seasons or so. And some are harsher than the others. So I'll typically ask them before I ask them about good marketing tips for certain seasons, I'll ask them first, when is your cold season? When is your hot season? Do you have shoulder months where it's not really hot or cold and you get no service calls at all? That way they can at least put that out there for the listeners, kind of to tee it up, paint the picture, if you will, and tell them. So if someone in Boston who is freezing cold 8 months of the year is listening, they could say, okay, this is what this guy does during his cold season, which is only 3 months in Phoenix. So I'll do that for my 8 months, and then I'll do the opposite for the other, whatever the math is there for.
What have you had guests that are tight-lipped on the things that work well for them, or are people pretty open in terms of sharing what works and what doesn't work for them?
Yeah, I think for the most part, they've all been very open about it. There's been a few that were kind of like, I don't want to give away all my secrets, but it was like, you're not really giving away all your secrets because, one, the people listening to this are all over the place. They're not even competitors of yours anyways. But two, if you're doing such a great job as you say you are, then you probably don't really care if your competitors are listening, because it's not like they can replicate what you're doing.
Well, that's the thing. It's very difficult to replicate that thing, right?
Yeah.
You could say, hey, go start a podcast, and that might work for you for a reason that has nothing to do with podcasts. It has all these other things to do with it. It could be because of the SEO perspective, because of that fancy icon that you put on there. People like your smile, like your voice, like it. That's what I always think is so much. Oh, well, I can't tell you this because Tim and I have heard that for the last 10 years on just, I can't tell you my business idea because it's the next whatever. It's like,
I need you to sign an NDA before I talk to you.
I literally walk out of the room. Like, I want someone to ask me to sign an NDA at this point. I'd be like, no, thank you. Like, bye. Like, I have no interest. It's just like, you think that this thing is so great, and maybe it is. Like, in the last year, I've heard one good idea, maybe, like that actually like from a new idea that seemed like it actually had something. And we hear a lot of ideas, and it's just like you're putting too much like confidence that it's just going to field a dreams effect, and that's just not the case. And I mean, think about how many features Facebook produces that never work but seem like amazing ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I always look at it, if I meet someone that does the same thing that I do, rather than look at them as competition and not wanting to share anything. I mean, to me, I look at it as a partnership opportunity that, hey, if you're overwhelmed and you need some surge support on a project, hey, come and talk to me. And likewise, if I'm in over my head with work, then I can sub some work out to you, as opposed to you trying to build that moat around your business and not talking to anybody.
Yeah.
What's a question you have for us, Eric? Oh, I got you twice now.
Why'd you take your hat off?
I wanted everyone to see how bad of a haircut. How bad of a hair? No, not bad of a haircut. How bad of a hair day I'm having, because I'm incapable of doing what my stylist can do to my hair the day after a haircut.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean,
it's a huge problem.
A haircut, and man, they make you look good, and then the next day you come out and you're like, your hair look like, you try to recreate it, it's impossible. And they got the fancy spray bottles there.
It's just water. That's what they say. I'm like, this is not just water.
It's just water, but it's like they spray it and it's like an endless stream of water. And then mine's like the little, like when you get a Home Depot for like Windex, it's like, and I'm like, bro, this is not working the way they had it going.
I left yesterday. I got a haircut yesterday. I left yesterday. I was like, this is a nice haircut.
Yeah.
Then today I was like, how am I going to do this? So I tried with the stuff that I had, doing a little doom, doom.
Yeah.
This is what you get. So.
All right. Here's my question for you all. Where do you host your podcast at?
Right now, we just have everything stored on YouTube.
It's not audio. It's not audio at all.
Oh, really? Interesting. What was the decision for that?
I don't recall. I think we just.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it. It's like, gosh, we're already going through and doing so much of the work. It's like, what would it take just to push it up to iTunes or
Gavin
Spotify?
Is in the background going, Yeah, I mean, honestly, at that point, it's just an upload, right? Because all the work is already done at that point.
Yeah,
it's I don't know that we have an answer. I know we talked about it, and I think it was just like hey, do you want to do this too? And I think the answer was.
The other thing too, it's like, gosh, at first, we were like, that's good. Let's kick the tires, see what happens. And now you're episode 68, and so it's like, where does the time go, kind of thing.
Gavin said, "Let's do it." Yeah,
there you go. Especially with StreamYard, all you have to do is download the audio, and you do an intro every time, so you don't really need to.
We need someone to come up with some fancy music to.
Okay, so speaking of which, somewhat guest, I think 25, Nate Scholl, swim nerd, in the last few days. So he has. This is pretty incredible stuff. So he's been going live. He used to be a swim coach at ODU, has created a swimming pace clock. and he's got all these like former or current swimmers. I think he had Nathan Adrian on last night, so big time Olympian on last night, and they're streaming while watching the performances of these swimmers. And Tim, I sent you one of them. So he has a podcast that's gotten pretty big in the swimming world. It's called something with Brett Hawk. I can't remember. That's his host. Nate just kind of produces it and sponsors it. But they've been getting like tens of thousands of views live on these hits, which has been pretty exciting that someone in their own backyard has been able to produce something like that live and seeing some of the streams. And Inside with Brett Hawk is the name. I don't even know if Gavin, you told me that, but
yeah. Well, that's, I mean, a shout out to the All In podcast, man. That intro and outro to the All In is so good, man. I mean, I would put that on my running playlist.
Oh, so what made me think of this is they have his intro was ridiculous. Like it's I'm like this. It's just funny. So, yeah, we need one. So if someone's listening and they want to produce a fancy little jingle for us, something like Tim. Yeah. Zack. Yeah. This is the show called the Fervent Four. Listen in. Boom.
Yeah.
There you go.
That boom is when everyone they just went on to the next. Exactly.
No, they as soon as they heard my voice, they went boom. What's been some of the biggest challenges of maybe just starting the business in general, since it's not even a year old, that you've seen over the year, or something directly? It doesn't have to be directly with the podcast at all, but what's some of the business challenges that you've had over the first year?
Oh gosh!
Wow, third time I've asked you. I got you 3 times. Tim, you gotta get him out.
Yeah. Podcast related, I would say, kind of like you were saying earlier, just burnout. I mean, I'm recording 3 or 4 times a week now. Not asking the same questions, but it does get a little tiring after a while. And so that's why it's nice when you hear from someone who kind of reaches back and is like, hey, I've been really enjoying the show. It's been helping me. Like that kind of just like boosts your dopamine a little bit. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. This is like not totally a waste of time.
Well, let's dig deeper into that, because it's something that we did talk about a little bit earlier. So before, I had a show called Zack Miller Says. I mean, look, it's still out there. It's still there. I haven't uploaded a video. I haven't uploaded anything to the RSS feed, audio only, in probably 4 months, right? And a lot of it is because of that word burnout, right? And so I would say that burnout started 2 years ago. It used to be a once a week show that I would upload some sort of a piece of material to, an interview just like your show. And at some point I was like, okay, this is going well. Let's go to 2 days a week. And then it was like, go to 3 days a week. And I was the one editing, producing all that stuff, similar to what you were doing, at least at the start. You had to have someone else to help you with that. But you're dictating when you tell people to tune in. Like, do you think that maybe pull back, or how do you remedy this? Because I think having Tim actually is very helpful on this. Having someone else where I don't have to constantly do this, that's been very helpful. He helps schedule the guest. Having Gavin do the other stuff is helpful. Like, what are you going to do to try to fix that so you don't burn out? Because this is an awesome tool for you to have for the business.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Yeah, I was getting really burnt out because I was recording, I was editing it. Like, I would take the audio at the time. I was going through Zoom, so I would record it. I would go on Zoom. I'd pull it from the cloud. I'd put it into GarageBand. I would edit all the ums and yeahs and likes out, because I say those words a lot and I refuse to get better at it. And I would edit those all out, and then I'd record a really cool intro, and I'd record a really cool outro that included a super specific call to action so that everybody would click on our link and sign up for service. But I got really burnt out of that. And so we just started talking about ways that we could make the process easier. That way the effort doesn't have to, increase, but it can rather decrease and still put out the same amount of stuff. So StreamYard, when we switched to StreamYard, it made it way easier, because then we're getting the video, the audio, plus the live content. And we could just download it straight from there, take that MP3, and then throw it straight up into the podcasting platform. But I will say, once Sophia came on board, who's our marketing specialist here at Rival Digital, she's helped tremendously, just like with Gavin, where I will record the episode now. That's all I do is record the episode. And then from there, I download the audio, I upload it into a Google Drive, and then Zapier just fires off a gazillion freaking tasks to Sophia and everyone else saying like, go do all this stuff. And then that's where the production happens of it. She'll take the audio and put the intro and the outros out, upload it, take the video, make clips, all that good stuff. So that's really the first way that we combated the burnout of it. So I feel like the next step or the next evolution in combating it would probably be to just limit my availability for recordings, because putting them out twice a week it's not too bad on its own, but recording it is the problem. Cause like right now I'm recording live 3 to 4 times a week. And that's where I feel like I'm really starting to get a little bit of a burnout. So I feel like, and that's just because I have Monday through Friday on my Calendly wide open for people to schedule.
And I know, at least from my end, I always try to listen and learn. I'm always listening and learning from others. And what some of the takeaways that I've had that I've learned is just, hey, I'm doing this. I want to have a conversation with you, Eric, and learn about your business. I'm not trying to do anything for the audience, not per se. I'm just having a conversation with you, and we would do this for an hour, whether if we were recording or pushing it out or not. So taking a lot of that pressure off in the sense of, oh man, is the audience going to like this question, or is this going to be something that's shareable? So that,
are they
that
gonna like
helps
my
me.
hair today?
Right.
They always like your hair.
Who?
Not yours, Eric. Tim's. He always has the best hair.
I usually wear a hat.
Dude, the pressure, man.
You know what's interesting? So I heard you say the calendar open like that, just 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. That was one of my big fixes. Is I removed that. I said no, I can only record on Tuesdays, and it wasn't live at that point. It was only recording on Tuesdays. Obviously, the show is Thursday at 11. That's the only time we record. When someone says they can't do it, we say sorry, right? And
now we're booked out for 2 months.
Yeah, and that's the answer. Like, this is when we have to do this. We've told our guests this is a live show at Thursday at 11 a.m. This is when you're going to get it. And you have to, like, respect your calendar. And look, I get it. There's outliers where you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to let this person come on for this reason because they're this guest and I really want them on.
Yeah.
Right? But for the overwhelming majority of the time, it's like, respect your calendar and say, you know what? I can do these back-to-back live Tuesdays at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and that's it. And you gotta respect that, because like I said before, what you don't want to happen is you find something that is sticking and working, and then you fall out of love with that thing and never want to do it and give it the attention that it needs to continue to do what it's been able to do for you so far.
Yeah.
Eric, do you have ads on I haven't listened to your podcast. Do you have ads on your podcast, or is this just strictly just a source for you to get clients?
So no, we don't typically have ads. We do have one right now, however, for Service World Expo, mainly because they invited me to come to the event and record podcasts there. And so there was kind of an agreement where they're not paying us for the ad. But however, they've made it very enticing for us to come to the event. And so we're going to be there with a booth and everything. I'll be recording podcasts. We'll have a booth set up exhibiting. And so from now until September 21st, we do have a small ad before the show talking about Service World Expo 2021 from September 21st to the 24th in Louisville, Kentucky. And
hashtag
Get 20% off your registration by using our promo code SWEPOD21. But that is absolutely an advertisement. But at the same time, I think it's one of those situations where it's brand awareness, and then it entices people to come to your booth, come by, see you as you're recording there, as the premier digital marketing firm for HVACs. And the only, really up-to-date podcast for HVAC marketing.
Yeah.
It's an avenue for you to have people see you and potentially win business from them. So I mean, I think the branding part of that is important, and so I don't think
that's
they got to know about you first, right? I mean, they can't buy from you if they don't know about you.
Yeah, and that's really the entire goal of it. We're not. I mean, I don't think yet we've really said. Maybe we made one post where we said we're going to the event, but it's been like, every email that goes out with a new episode, every other type of communication that's going out right now is saying we're going to be here live recording podcasts. If you want to be recorded, like, let us know. And like, we're going to be there with our booth telling people about the awesome websites we make. But there's probably going to be other marketing agencies doing that. But how many of them are going to be there recording live podcasts?
How many podcasts do you think you're going to record?
I'm sorry, what?
How many podcasts will you record over that event? That's got to be tiring.
Yeah, so that's probably one of the things that we're going to begin working on or thinking about, because we were saying, like, we want to get as many as we possibly can without, completely like blowing it out. So it's a 4-day event. So I was thinking like 2 or 3 a day with like key people. Like Gino Wickman's going to be there. Like, he would be a cool person to interview.
Who's that?
The author of Traction.
Uh-huh.
He's one of the keynote speakers. I doubt I'll be able to interview him. But like, finding like the big...
Well, with that kind of attitude, you will not be able to interview him. But if you go ask the people of whatever world from Louisville, Kentucky, they will. I'm sure you can get them to have that assignment for you and available.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, I would say like right now we've been realistically dabbling between the thought of maybe doing 2 and 4 a day, because they are 8-hour events, 8 hours a day for 4 days. And so,
well, you got to think about too, if you do them during breakout sessions, or not breakout sessions, during like intermission, if you will, it's going to be loud. So you're going to have to do it when people aren't in the piece. There's some logistics that you're going to have to get through there. Tim, I'm interested, as someone who's run 2,400 straight days, something like that, whatever the number is at this point, a lot of years, or being in business. Like, what have you done to kind of combat, whether it's just business, fitness, life, whatever, what have you done to combat some of the burnout, if you will, on something that, specifically something that seems to be working?
Well, I think that you can't, for me personally, I can't overemphasize the importance of streaks. I mean, so like consecutive days in a row that you do something. So to your point, Zach, I don't know, I'm at 2,000 plus days in a row that I've run. And so the thought of me starting at 0 and then knowing that I would have to go run another 2,000 days in order to hit that point again. I mean, that's what keeps me motivated to continue to do that. But even if it's find a new podcast, find a new podcast to listen to, or if I'm listening to music or whatever, I would put some new songs in there that I haven't heard over and over and over again, but just little things to just change things up a little bit so it's not so routine, if you will.
Yeah, I have a little streak that started primarily because of you as well. I'm over like 1,300 days of doing something physical, right? And kind of like the same thing as you. It's like, if I restart this, we're almost into year 4. Like, think about that. Like, and there have been times where, like, look, I'll be the first to admit, some days are definitely more daunting than others. Some are where I'm doing 70.3 miles. Some are where I'm doing a handful of push-ups, right? But I'm doing something every single day. The majority of them are way more than just a handful of push-ups, obviously, especially in the last year or two. But it is like you said, like, if that streak ends,
Yeah.
I mean, what would happen? Yeah. I mean, so you're going to stop the streak at some point, right?
Well, and I told everybody, hey, if I qualify for Boston, I'm going to end my streak. And then I started telling, then I qualified, and I'm running Boston this year. And then I'm toying with the idea of like, all right, the day after Boston, I'm going to end my streak. I need to do it on something that's monumental. But then once I get to that point, I'm like, man, I still can't do it, because the thought of starting at day 1 all over again is just way too, I can't do it.
Yeah, so I guess the moral of the story is download a habit tracking app and swipe right every day. or
Yeah.
do that thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, because I mean, the thing is and we've talked about this, Zach, once you break that streak, so like for me, if I was to take one day off of running, next week I'm going to take 2 days off, and then it's going to turn into 4 days off. Next thing you know, a month has gone by, and it's like, man, now I got to try to just push myself to just go out there again. And
Yeah.
Look at look at the show I was talking about. Zack Miller Says, the Zack Miller Says podcast was doing that in a pretty big, frequently time of way. Not every day, but
yeah,
very
and
consistent.
I don't know.
And then I stopped it, and it went away.
Gavin, you have to take a look at this, but it's something like it's a book maybe called "Eat the Frog," and basically what
Tracy.
Is that, yeah, as far as, you look, inventory what your day is going to look like and do the most difficult task first. And then after that, you're kind of just coasting the rest of the day, but you have to take that first task and tackle that right away.
Yeah.
For Tracy, eating a frog is a metaphor for tackling your most challenging task, but also the one that can have the greatest positive impact on your life. Is it Brian Tracy? Did I get that from memory? Eat that frog! Exclamation point. 21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get more done in less time.
And so, and that's just it. I feel like for me, running is one of those things. People are like, oh man, you're addicted. I'm not addicted to it. I mean, the first step to this day is still the hardest step. But then once I'm done, then I can go. But like if it's pouring down rain and if I push that most difficult thing off until later in the day, it just gets harder and harder and harder. And it just weighs on you mentally. And so from a business side, if you've got that, if you know that you have to do that one thing that is just going to be so difficult to do, you just got to get it done. And then all that weight and pressure is lifted off of you. And then you can go about your day.
Why is it, either of you can answer this question, why is it that first step, no matter what it is, physical work, whatever, is always the hardest? Why is that?
I mean, I don't know about you, Eric, man, but it's so mental. And we've talked about this over and over again in terms of like the comparison and the parallels between physical fitness and your business sense and your business endurance. To me, you have to be strong mentally to overcome those things. And if you can go through and start a plan and make that first step, follow through a 12-week plan or a 16-week plan, whatever the case is, then you have that mental strength to go through and complete something that you're going after. So if someone was like, hey man, I'm dipping my toe in the water about marketing for my HVAC company. Yeah, I'm really not sure how it's going to work. And then you're like, hey, this is the plan. This is the ingredients. This is what's going to work. And if you follow these steps, you're going to see successes. And if they're not fully committed, are they really the right client for you? And that's a determination that you have to make. To me, I've been burned by so many people that won't be fully committed that, I need someone to prove to me that they are going to go through with it.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting about that concept is that I feel like I'm someone who in the past has posted a lot online. And when I got on my fitness journey, the most recent one in the last 2 years, I really didn't post about it at all. So it was almost like, don't tell the world. So then when I was like, I came out and I shared a picture recently of just my Ironman finish. And people are like, oh my God, you look amazing. I'm just like, they're like, how do we not know this was going on? I'm like, I didn't tell a soul. Like I just focused on the damn thing. And it's like, I also didn't weigh myself for almost a year, right? Because that it didn't matter, right? What mattered is that I did the task at hand. And I focused solely on that thing. Yeah, I had a very small support crew, if you will, that I would talk to about these things that was doing something similar with me. But I didn't need to broadcast to the world like, oh my God, my goal is to do this.
Well, if you look at it, so someone signs up for Rival Digital and they're like all fired up that they're going to take their business to the next level, and then they don't have what it takes to go through the plan to make your business, then Eric, that's hurting your brand when someone's like, hey man, how'd that work out for you? Man, I didn't go through with it. It didn't result in anything. So, again, it goes back to knowing your customer and choosing wisely.
Yeah, well, I think another thing in regards to like the first step being the hardest and all that other stuff is people forget the goal. They forget why they started this in the first place, or why they're going down this path in life in the first place. Like podcasts, this happens all the time where they call it pod fading. Someone's like, I'm going to start a podcast about running, or about Selena Gomez, or about whatever it is.
Free Britney.
I'm going to start a niche podcast.
We need to free Britney.
I'm going to start a podcast on Virginia Tech football, or whatever it is. And then they go super hard because they're like fired up at first. They're like every day, they're like going. And then it like starts to slow down. They get out of that honeymoon phase.
There's numbers to that, right? So Douglas Burdett, he was on my TV show, Hampton Roads Business Weekly, and he told me this. I was astonished. It's 7 podcasts. It's the first fade.
Yeah.
And then 25, and then I can't remember what the number is after that. But like, that's not a lot of recordings.
No, it's not.
Can you imagine? Oh, I'm gonna do a daily podcast or a weekly podcast. You give it 7 tries. People don't get, meaning they don't get to the 7th. If you get to episode 7, you're in the clear almost. Like, that's absurd. Like, that's 7 episodes. You should have that in the can beforehand. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I think I wrote this in Anomaly. Like, if you can't come up with 40 topics of things that you want to talk about, no matter what you want to do, don't do that thing.
Yeah. And they get burnt out. They forget the goal. They want to become famous, or they want to become Joe Rogan, or they want to do
right.
And it doesn't.
But they don't look at the career of what Joe Rogan did to get where he did, or the whoever to get to where they are. And they're always
episode 1832 or whatever it is now.
Or that he was on Fear Factor, or that he was a comedian and all this other stuff, like that he's also like the UFC guy. Like, there's all this other stuff that people never see or they forget about. And it's like, hold on. There's more context to every story. You're not giving it the credit it deserves or needs that it actually has.
I'm sure that
an example too, I'm sure.
Right. I mean, if we look back and listen to our first 7 episodes, I mean, that was the first time me doing anything like that. I'm sure it's terrible, and it's a continuous improvement process. Eric, that may or not be the same for you, but I mean, everyone's going to continue to improve, and to give up after try 5, 6, or 7, I mean, you're still super green at that point.
Yeah. You got fact checked 1686, Tim, of the. Of Joe Rogan.
I mean, if I look back at the first 7 episodes, the stats, the things everyone's like, I got so many streams. If I listen to the first 7, first off, the audio quality is probably trash, and then second off, I'm willing to bet that the first 7 streams combined, I could drop an episode right now of me just saying, hey, what's up? And then it would get double the amount of listens in all 7 of those combined. Just because at first you start and no one's listening, and that is discouraging to put together all that work, like we were talking about, downloading the audio, editing out all the stuff, putting in the intros and the outros, and uploading it, converting the file, putting it into the streaming platform. Like, that's a ton of work for no one to listen to it but you and like your brother and your mom.
Well, another, and your mom is your number 1 listener. I always appreciate that. I remember, I believe this is right when COVID started. Tim and I were talking. We started the show probably mid-March, late March. That's when I guess COVID became official. I wore a jean jacket. I'm looking at the screenshots right now. I wore a jean jacket, a button-up dress shirt, and a freaking tie. I guarantee you, I have not worn a tie since that day. And I want to get on the show unless we have someone super famous and I want to look like a complete tool and to like cop out and just be like ridiculous. I mean,
rock on.
I would wear a fanny pack that day or something. Like, I don't know.
Like black.
But it is interesting to look back at those things. And like, as I'm scrolling through, Erica McManus, she'll be a guest on again. And we look through your history. That's important. Half the time you forget you even did the damn thing. You're like, do we interview that person? Like,
yeah.
And though, like, people just need to like get over that. They need to stop trying to be famous, because famous doesn't mean anything, right? Like, oh, hey, you're famous. Does that mean it's helping you get closer to that end goal? And if it doesn't, then who cares? But it could be a thing that helps you get closer to that goal. But like the fame aspect of it is something that I don't understand why people are so stoked about it. Also, like the hairstyles of Tim and I. Tim's are basically the same every week, but like my beard is either really big or really small, and my hair is like all over the place. Like it's fun looking back.
I think the fame thing is kind of funny too, because it's like, the Rival Digital podcast, it is starting to pick up, and like people are starting to say like, oh, I love your show. We listen to it all the time. We're being invited. We've been invited to Service World Expo. We've also been invited to Epic, which is in Las Vegas. We had to turn that one down though, because like we had something else going on.
Oh,
but it's like, you guys think that I woke up one day and was like, I'm going to become famous in HVAC marketing. I want to be. No, we offer a service to our clients and other HVAC contractors, and we decided that we wanted to start, instead of writing blog posts, which takes up forever, just interviewing other HVAC contractors and asking them, hey, how'd you grow your business? What are you doing? What worked? What didn't work?
That's interesting, because when I started, so Zack Miller says before that it was called the 1004 Show. And the reason was that I started, it was because it was like, okay, we have these clients and I want to give them another avenue to market them by interviewing them. And so that's basically what I just heard you say. And when Tim and I started this show, it was, hey, this traumatic thing is going on in the world. Let's be a positive, a positive thing to them during this time. And it's interesting how very quickly we stopped talking about COVID, because it's like, it's a question that we ask, right? Like, is there anything about COVID that we can talk about? And COVID was the reason why we started this thing, basically. But yet we don't really talk about COVID. And we didn't really for a long time in that.
More, and it's still a question when we send something out for people. Hey, what do you want to talk about on the show? And now, more times than not, people are like, no, I don't do anything COVID related. So
is that because you think that they just pivoted off of it and figured it out? Like, what do you think that reasoning is? Either of you can answer.
Well, if you had asked me a couple of weeks ago, I'd think that we turned the page. However, who knows what? I don't know if I can say that now.
Yeah, I closed the book. Come on.
No, I did too, but other people, they're flipping pages back to start this thing all over again.
I want to reread a certain chapter.
Speaking of which, I saw you were trending on Twitter last night, Tim.
Was I? Yeah, I did. That happens so often. I lose track.
It wasn't you. It was that other guy in Ohio.
Yeah.
Got it.
Eric, what's something we haven't talked about today that you want to talk about?
Oh, I'm not sure. We can talk about whatever.
Do you like being on this end of it?
Yeah.
Or would you rather ask the questions?
I like either end of it. It's definitely different. When I'm interviewing, the hardest thing I have to think about is just like ask the question and then shut up and then like let the person just talk. But then when I'm on this end of it, I have to remind myself like, okay, now you have to talk. And so I think this is probably the third time I've ever been on a podcast on the other end. So it's definitely different. I enjoy both ways.
Well, and I think what can be a challenge with what you're talking about is I insert myself way too much, and I'm cognizant of that, right? Mm-hmm. But I also think that's what people like, so that I'm not just asking a question. I am listening and conversing with the person. And Tim does it too, not as frequently as me because he's nice, but like it is about a conversation with someone, and like don't just ask the same 5 questions.
Yeah, and I think there's a vulnerability aspect to it too. I mean, I know for me personally, I ask a lot of questions that I already know the answer to, but I want to hear that person's take, and it's a great way to lead the conversation. And as the last thing on my mind is, well, it may make me sound not intelligent or whatever word you want to use, but it's.
Well, I'm dumb as rocks, so I don't even care about that. Thank you for neither of you guys denying that. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Well played, Eric.
You know what, Tim? You need a picture of yourself on the wall behind you, and then you can be as cool as us.
I'll work on that.
Okay, without looking it up, who was the person who created the first podcast?
Henry something?
I don't remember. I'm not allowed to look it up either. But on your show, you have a bunch of quizzes. And so we're going to do one more question. Who is your favorite host of the Fervent Four Show?
I don't know if I can answer that.
I was yeah. My initial response was Gavin.
Yeah. The Rock.
Rock. I like that you spice that up with little trivia in the show. Tim, that's something that maybe we should do. We should come up with something. Hey, what's the area code of the 757 after the 757 is done being the 757?
8 something, I thought.
804?
No, that's Richmond.
867?
5? 3?
309?
Was it Becky or Jenny?
Jenny.
Got it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about, Eric, before we sign off?
No, not really. If you're interested in learning more about our company, we have a website, rivaldigital.com. We're listening to podcasts.
John O'Brien says 803. Yeah.
Oh, 843.
843.
843.
There it is.
There it is.
Podcast, you can find it on our website. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can go on Google and type in HVAC Marketing Podcast. You'll find plenty of stuff on there. We go, we release episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. We go live. Oh gosh, a lot. So you can go follow us on Facebook or something if you want to listen to me ramble on the other end of the microphone sometime with HVAC contractors. If you're so passionate about listening about HVAC marketing, then you could join us and listen. So yeah, I think that's all I had.
Tim?
Thanks, Eric. It was fun. Quick hour.
Yeah, time flies.
All right. Well, it was great. And until next time, peace and pancakes.